Welcome to our podcast Global Trends, where we discuss about the nowadays issues that affects our world. Today we're talking about the story of fast fashion focusing on its deep ties to China.
That's right. We'll explore the environmental impacts of fast fashion, expose the realities of modern slavery, and analyze how globalization is reshaping the region. We'll also dive into the moral and ethical questions and what geographic justice can teach us about responsibility and change.
Stick with us as we uncover the true cost of cheap clothes and what it means for the people and the planet. Fast fashion has revolutionized the clothing industry, making trendy, affordable clothing accessible to millions, but behind these low prices lies a hidden cost.
And China, as the largest contributor for textile production, sits at the heart of this system. More than 60% of the world textiles are produced in China, being the fast fashion epicenter. The speed and scale of productions come at a heavy price. Factories lead to massive environmental damage and exploitative labor practices.
Let's start with the environmental issues. Did you know that the fashion industry consumes about the 93 billion cubic meters of water annually? That's enough to meet the needs of 5 million people.
In China, the problem is severe. Factories use toxic dyes and chemicals, contaminating rivers and lakes. The World Bank estimates that textile dyeing is one of the largest contributors to water pollution globally.
The environmental degradation caused by fast fashion in China is alarming. Contaminated water supplies, deforestation for farming, and greenhouse and gas emissions are just some of the issues. These impacts affect communities locally and globally.
And the carbon footprint? The fashion industry accounts for the 10% of global carbon emissions, more than all international flights and maritime shipping combined. Along the environmental problematics, there is also the human cost. Many garment workers in China face harsh working conditions like long hours, low pay, and unsafe environments.
Reports have linked forced labor camps to textile production, highlighting grave human rights abuses. This raises critical questions. Who is responsible? Are companies turning a blind eye to exploitative practice in their supply chains? And what can consumers do to demand accountability?
Fast fashion is a product of globalization. The high demand for cheap, trendy clothing has driven brands to seek out low-cost manufacturing centers like China.
Globalization has created a race to the bottom, prioritizing profit over people and the environment. For regions like China, the pressure to compete on cost often overrides ethical considerations.
The result? A system where a global north enjoys affordable clothing while the global south shoulders the environmental and social burdens.
This brings us to morality and ethics. Are we as consumers complicit in this injustice when we buy fast fashion?
And what about the geographic justice? The concept highlights how the negative impacts of production, like pollution, exploitation, health risks, fall most heavily on vulnerable communities in regions like China.
This inequity demands action. It is not just about blaming corporations, it is about rethinking the entire system, from production to consumption.
Geographic justice challenges us to see beyond the price tags. It asks us to consider who is paying the real price and how we can balance the scales.
Whether through stricter regulations, corporate accountability, or informed consumer choices, change is possible, but it requires collective effort.
As we finish, it is clear that fast fashion is a deeply complex issue. The environmental, ethical, and social costs are critical, with China taking on the greatest impact.
But awareness is the first step towards change. By understanding the impact of our choice, we can push for more sustainable and ethical practices in the fashion industry.
So what can you do? Start by choosing quality over quantity. Support brands that prioritize fair labor and sustainable practices. And most importantly, speak up for the systematic change in the industry.
Thank you for turning into the global trends. Let's keep pulling at the threads of injustice and work toward a fairer future for everyone.
Until next time, stay informed, stay conscious, and keep questioning.